So I'm a little bit late to the party, but I finally finished Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. Let me know, what did you think about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 1? And put into context, how have you felt about Star Trek in general over the last few years? And are you kind of a lifelong Star Trek fan, or is this something brand new to you? With that said, let's go ahead and get started with my thoughts on Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Now, if you're not familiar with my kind of take on Star Trek, I grew up watching the original series Next Generation all throughout the 90s. My mother, sister, and I would go to Star Trek conventions. I didn't go to Comic-Cons. I went to Star Trek conventions back in the day. One of my earliest memories of going to a movie theater, maybe my earliest memory of going to a movie theater, was in summer of 1989. My mother, sister, and I were doing a cross-country trip from Texas to California. We stopped in a small town in New Mexico or Arizona that had only one screen at this theater. The theater had a balcony, and they were showing Star Trek V, and if they didn't sell 20 tickets, they wouldn't play the movie. And so we got our tickets, sat in the theater for Star Trek V, and counted the heads as people came in, waiting to see if they would get up to 20 people so we could watch the movie. They did. So one of my earliest memories is of watching Star Trek V. So despite it not being one of the better Star Trek films and being widely regarded as the worst Star Trek film, I have very fond memories of that film. And over the last 5 years, as CBS All Access and then Paramount Plus has been putting out these seasons of Star Trek, I haven't really liked them. I have not at all been a fan of Discovery, Picard. I just think they've completely missed the mark of what makes people love Star Trek and made us lifelong fans. And it's been kind of heartbreaking just watching how far off the mark they've been with those shows, how much money they poured into them to totally miss the basics and understanding your audience, understanding the demand on any sort of reasonable level. That brings us to Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and I really dug it. And honestly, as I was watching it, the whole time I was thinking, was it really this difficult to come up with this concept? Was it really this hard? Did it really take 5 years of failures, seasons that were totally off the mark to come up with this show? Because it's not like it's that groundbreaking. It's not like it's that revolutionary. It's just being true to the original series. It updates, obviously, the special effects, the kind of the way the storytelling's done. It updates that stuff, but it's true to the tone, the nature of the stories, the episodic, individual, week-by-week episodes. Like, it's true to the original series, the sense of adventure plus fun plus humor while having deaths and drama. It's just true to it, but updates it. Was it really that hard to give us Star Trek in the 21st century? Now, I don't want to oversell the show and say that I think that it's just absolutely amazing and the best Star Trek we've ever had. No. But it's a good return to form. I would probably say that this is the best Star Trek show since Deep Space Nine. Now, I don't think Voyager kind of aged all that well. It's kind of show that was cool when it first came out, and it was just not one that I ever really wanted to re-explore. Enterprise, I never got into it. When it first debuted, I thought it was off. Like, as soon as the theme song started playing, it's a Diane Warren pop song, I was like, something's not quite right here. So I never really got into Enterprise, despite being someone that enjoyed Scott Bakula. When he was announced as being the captain, I was like, cool, the guy from Quantum Leap's going to be on Star Trek? Cool. But I never got into it. Even when it dropped on Netflix, I tried to watch through it again. Didn't click for me. And then, as I've documented on this channel in the past, I thought Discovery, it just makes, it's just a terrible Star Trek show. It's not the worst science fiction show out there. It's not terrible as just a show in general, but as a Star Trek show, it just fundamentally doesn't understand what Star Trek is and what the Federation is and what draws people to Gene Roddenberry's utopian future, because it's definitely not that. And so they're trying to figure out what to do with it, and they kept changing. Clearly, they knew they did something wrong and have been trying to reinvent themselves ever since the first season. And then Picard, once again, it's just like a show that seems to fundamentally not understand what Star Trek is about. And even when it tries to tackle relevant themes as Star Trek has always done, it's totally off the mark and gets it all wrong. And finally with this show, first time in 30 years, we get a Star Trek show that seems like that's it. This is what I want. It does feel kind of fresh and new and a little bit different, but it's just true to the original series. With all that said, what are some specific things I liked and didn't like about it? The cast, I thought, popped. And that's one of the things I think has been missing from some of these other recent shows, is that I just don't care about any of the new characters. And in this show, I actually bought into the cast, their chemistry, their dynamics. They made me care about characters that some of them, don't want to go into any specific spoilers in case you haven't seen it yet, but some of them won't be returning for season 2. And they made you actually care about when that happened. And by having people, whatever happens to them, they're not returning next season, you feel the stakes of it. But they created and cast people in a way that they had good chemistry. They're fun to watch. And because it is returning to, a prequel to the original series, you do have some familiar characters in there that bring a little bit of weight and gravitas, while at the same time having new characters that you care about too. Big standout here, Anson Mount as Pike is just great. As this guy that feels like this kind of adventurer that wants to go out there, that can make decisions, but he has a different leadership style than, say, a Captain Kirk or even a Picard. He's very much, let's bring the whole crew together, let's get to know everybody, let's listen to everyone and try and find a good solution. So he's working with people. He just has a great personality too, where he feels like a guy that, where he can be funny without it trying too hard. It's just his reactions, his little quips, his sarcasm, just it plays all right at the right moments in time. So I really dig this version of Pike and what they when they let him just kind of be himself. Love all that stuff. Wasn't crazy about this version of Spock on Discovery. I didn't hate it, but the way that he was brought in on Discovery, they were trying to let's put our own spin on Spock, and let's throw a beard on there and everything, and he wasn't Spock, and here you get him as Spock, and it's a little bit tough when you've got Leonard Nimoy as Spock is one of the classic, iconic characters and castings of the genre. So no matter what, you always are going to compare negatively. But is it a distraction? Does it work? He works. I think the guy works when you let him just kind of do his thing. Fits in nicely. But still, a lot of the characters in here popped much more so than I was originally expecting them to when they first appeared. And I certainly went in skeptical and cynical and was won over by the chemistry and the fun of the setup. Other things I liked about it, just in general, the episodic nature. That it's not trying to tell this it's not trying to do a 10-episode movie. It's not serialized to the extent, it goes back to classic Star Trek of each week we go to a strange new world and we have an adventure there. And then they let each episode have a different genre to it. So you've got some episodes that are full-blown goofy, where through some series of beings out there we discover we're suddenly in a book. Another episode, it's basically Alien in the Star Trek universe. It's a horror, sci-fi, thriller, action story. And so it does all of these different things, combines them together, and that was fun. It doesn't feel monotonous. It has light episodes, it has dramatic episodes, it has horror episodes, and it's just fun adventure episodes. Kind of has all the different things that you might want. And it's just kind of nice to see the Star Trek universe of that era that I grew up watching that shows, but with modern effects and without it being Discoveryified. Just whatever Discovery was, where they tried to turn Star Trek into Game of Thrones in space, it was totally the wrong vibe for Star Trek. This is classic Star Trek with a 21st century makeover, and I appreciated that. I didn't love everything, though. So what did I not like about the show? I think just in general, there's kind of this fixation with so many of these modern shows that everything has to tie back to their personal life. And in my initial review of the pilot episode, I talked about some of the stuff with Spock, and I was probably a little bit too flippant and loose with my language and didn't do enough, like, stop and think about what I'm going to say. So I said some silly stuff, kind of not giving credit to the fact that they were tying into something that is a part of canon in discussing Spock's love life. But I stand by the point that I was making. I was wrong in my specific facts or the way that I handled them. When criticizing the fact that it introduces him like in bed with a woman, and that is canon. It does fit into the lore previously established by original Trek. But what I don't like is that Spock's love life is like a major theme of the whole season. And there's not full-blown love triangles, but it's pretty close to love triangles in Spock's life. That stuff where we have to know everything about everyone's backstory, and the doctor has a whole plot line about his daughter and her sickness, and then we've got to learn about everyone has this heavy backstory. And you always had bits of that in Star Trek, but that's what made it pop in previous versions, is that you had a bit of it. It wasn't the main focus. That's not what everything was about. You get a little bit at certain points in times, and so the focus was on the sci-fi adventure, the allegorical storytelling, the message of the week. It wasn't all about who's dating who and who has a crush on who and all kind of this backstory stuff. Right along those same lines, I think that they made a pretty fundamental mistake in making Pike know his fate. The audience knows his fate if you've seen original Trek, but through Discovery, they establish Pike knows what's going to happen to him. And so then that's lingering thing that weighs on him. What should I do in light of what I know is going to happen to me? And I just don't know that's not the most compelling or relatable arc to give your captain. That every episode we're pausing to go, what's he going to do in light of the fact that he knows that he's going to die and win? It provides a couple of unique opportunities, in particular the season finale. It's a unique thing that you can do. But other than that, I mostly would have preferred they found a different way to kind of explore this captain. A different way to set all of this up, rather than he knows that he's going to die and how and when, and thus he's constantly questioning every choice in light of this totally unrelatable thing. So I didn't care for that all that much. Likewise, kind of how the stuff they did with the doctor and his daughter, just felt too heavy-handed, melodramatic, and it played out so quickly that it was like, I don't know if they're planning on like making that a thing that's recurring, of that she ties back in some meaningful way each season or something, but it just seemed like a really odd story that has so much weight to it to just kind of resolve as quickly as it did. Other things wasn't, I think the guy, this is a tough one, but so we get a new version of Kirk in the finale, and that's not a spoiler. They put the images, the casting, everything out there. Shatner's really tough to recast. And so inherently you go into impersonation mode, and I wasn't fully feeling it just yet. It was a really odd thing to watch, because Captain Kirk, like, look, right here, right here. Here's a picture of me with William Shatner. I mean, that's like the picture, all the things next to me. I got a Rocky quote, I got Star Wars over here, and I got me with William Shatner. That's what I'm looking at every time I'm filming videos. And so Captain Kirk, amazing captain, and it's odd to be watching a Star Trek show and have Captain Kirk feel lightweight compared to Christopher Pike. That's odd. And maybe that's not entirely fair, because this guy's not cast to lead the show, but he's cast to play a character that is an icon. And maybe he'll do better in future seasons if they find a way to bring him back, and I think they've said that he will be. But he just felt like any other kind of guest star captain on an episode of Star Trek. You always have these guest star captains showing up on Star Trek of varying qualities and interest and leadership styles and things like that. this one didn't feel like he had the weight of a Captain Kirk. Even on Discovery, when Pike showed up, Anson Mount playing him, he just immediately popped and had this weight to him that I don't feel that this Kirk had. And that's a big deal to me when picture in front of me when I'm filming is me with Captain Kirk. So I don't want to just trash the guy. It wasn't like terrible, but it certainly didn't have the weight that I would hope to have from Captain Kirk. And seeing him in before classic era, actually, I guess it would be parallel to an I don't want to say too much in case you haven't watched it yet. Running in the era of the original series, he just didn't have the weight of William Shatner in that role. And a final one thing that I wasn't crazy about, I don't know where they're going with this or how it's going to tie in some meaningful way, but so they have a member of the Enterprise crew being a descendant of Khan. Even with, like, just who she is, and it ties into a plot line of knowing about genetic engineering, and like that's a running thing. I don't know what the weird obsession is with Khan of having to tie back to it. Well, I mean, I know what it is. Obviously, he's the most celebrated, one of the most celebrated Star Trek villains. So you lean into your best stuff, but I don't know how it makes any sense in this context. Like this is a context where it doesn't make sense to play that card. Like, she's just a descendant that was on the Enterprise before Space Seed. What? What? I don't think that adds up. That's not going to make a ton of sense here. So, yeah, I thought that was odd. Like, I didn't mind the character on the show. The concept of the character on paper, as stated to us, doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So, in general, as I said before, this is the most I've liked a Star Trek show out of the gate in 30 years. I think that it still has its problems, some issues here and there, some things that are like, why are we doing this? What about this? That was kind of weak. But this is absolutely the right direction. This is the Star Trek show that I wanted. It's hitting the right notes without just rehashing everything. It's tying into original series in some interesting ways. Yeah, you have to know that we're messing around with canon a little bit. You have to be able to forgive that. You have to be able to. And if you can, this is the Star Trek show that it's like, why didn't you just do this back 5 years ago when Discovery came out? Why did you do that weird Game of Thrones and space thing that ended up 1,000 years in the future? Like, why did you do that and not this? Like, why this seems like it's the safe bet, but that's not a bad thing to design a Star Trek show to be what Star Trek fans would want it to be. So, I enjoyed it. It hit the right notes for me. Really like Anson Mount as Christopher Pike. Not necessarily the arc they gave him, but him in the role, I think, is great and one of the great Star Trek captains that we've gotten up to this point in time. So easily giving this one a thumbs up. Few issues here and there. But if you're someone that was very put off by Discovery, Picard, and you thought these guys just don't know what they're doing, I would have agreed with you, and this is them moving in the right direction. This might be the show that you've been waiting for. Just know, of course, they're playing around with canon, so you have to be able to forgive some of that stuff, but it's absolutely a step in the right direction. And my sister, sister of mine, I know you're watching this. This one is worth checking out. I don't know why I'm talking to you over video since I'm just going to text you this information afterwards anyway, but give it a try. You'll like it. You'll be annoyed by some canon stuff, but I think you'll actually like what they're trying to do with it. Everyone else, let me know what you thought down below in the comment section. And keep talking movies and TV too much. Bye-bye.